This is just one piece of a multi-part course. If you're interested in more, check out tunefiles.com. For this video, we are back in Procreate, and we're going to take a look at some of the basic tools and features of Procreate. It's expected that you know a little bit about Procreate when working within this course, such as how to access the brushes, the layers, how to export, and that sort of thing. And this isn't a course on the basics of Procreate, but we're just going to take this video to quickly go through some things that you need to know if you are in fact following along with Procreate when using this course. So with that said, we're going to dive in and get started. So first things first, in order to make a new document, on the top right is a plus button. And if you tap on this button, you'll gain access to all the templates currently available within the app. You can make your own and you can save them. As you can see, we have quite a few here. But in our case, we're just going to tap on screen size, which is something you should have as well. And we can go in and get started. Once inside, this first task is more of a preference. However, it can be a strain on the eyes to view a white background for a long period of time when drawing. And we can control what this background looks like within Procreate. We can't remove it, but we can color it. So if we tap on the Layers button, which is the fourth button in on the top right, you'll see we have background color. And if you tap on the background color thumbnail, you can choose the color within the color picker panel. And in our case, we can just grab the white dial at the top because it is currently set to white, as we can see, and we can just drop it down as far as we need to. Now, you can change it to any color you wish as well, but in our case, we're just going to drop it a little bit so that way it's not so extreme and it'll be easier to work with for longer periods of time. On the top right, the first icon is the brush. And by tapping this, you are then allowed to start drawing on screen on whichever layer you're on. But if we tap on this icon again, we gain access to the brush library. We have a variety of categories, and within each category are different brush types. You may find on this course we have some custom categories, and you can definitely download custom brushes and even make your own. But for the most part, you'll find that a lot of what is here is also built into your copy of Procreate. But by going through all of your different categories, you can look at the different brushes. So with sketching, we have pencils. In inks, we have different types of pen textures that we can use for our brush. And the list goes on and on and on. And with the ability to add your own, you can really expand the capability of this software. For our case, we're just going to go with Scott's pencil, which is a downloadable brush, and we can include that in the description box of this lecture. You don't need to download this brush. You can pick a brush from the sketching section, which also has a bunch of pencil textures that you can use. Or you can just go with whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with. Right now, we're just practicing and getting ready to do something more advanced. In addition to being able to pick your brush and adjust the settings, you can also adjust the size of the brush as well. You can see as we place some ink down on the canvas, it looks like this. But on the left, we have these two dials. And if we come in and start to play with these dials, if we raise it down or up, you can see that we're able to interact with the size of the brush. And all you have to do is just place your pencil down or your finger to adjust the dial. So we can go all the way up, just as an example, to give this another go. If we come in here and apply that circle, you can see that it now looks thicker. And if we raise it close to the bottom, we now have a much finer, thinner line, which can greatly alter the way everything appears within your designs. Now, the second dial on the bottom of that one is for transparency. So if you want to lighten the stroke lines, you can do so by just lowering this dial to virtually 0% or 1%. And the lower it is, the more transparent your stroke lines will be. As you can see, It might be easier to demonstrate this with a thicker stroke line. So if we come up here and just paint this first with an opacity of 100, and then we were to lower then the opacity and try it again, you can see the difference is clear. Now, what's nice about this is you can layer your ink. So we can continue just to paint in and paint in and paint in, and you can see every stroke we make is altering the way it looks. And so that is something you can definitely do and allows you to finely shade in items and color and opens up a bunch of different options. For our purposes right now, we can come in and make sure the opacity is at 100% and lower the brush size to about, let's say, 17. Let's talk about some basic navigation. If we take 2 fingers, place it on the screen, and we pinch in, we are able to zoom out. And as we do this more and more, you can zoom out quite a bit, allowing you to see almost everything. But let's say you want your canvas to fill the screen back up. Well, take 2 fingers, quickly pinch them together, and then remove your fingers from the screen. So pinch and raise up, and that should snap your canvas back to full screen, so that way you're good to go. The next tool we'll look at is the eraser. This is the 3rd item on the top right. Now, with the eraser, it works as you'd probably expect. You can go in and remove ink from the canvas. The 2 dials on the left control the size and the opacity, just like your brush. What's also cool about this is the eraser, if you tap on it, shares the same brush library. And so it's common practice for consistency for artists to use the same brush type for their actual brush as for their eraser. So that way, as you're drawing and erasing, everything is consistent. Now, you can have differences. For instance, we could have Scott's pencil set to the brush, and we could also do the same for our eraser, but you could switch it up if you wanted to change the style. You can see I can come in here and just quickly do that. Well, what if you want the same brush style for each one, but you don't want to go through and change all these settings? Well, if we hold down on the eraser tool with our pencil or our finger, we will get a little notification that pops up on the top of the screen, which allows us to copy the settings from the brush to the eraser. You can see it did it just now. And if we tap on the eraser, you can see Scott's pencil is selected along with all its parameters, and the same goes for our brush as well. So we could come in here and use Scott's pencil for both drawing and removing ink from the canvas. And we can adjust the size and the opacity and work with it, and you can see it's erasing in different ways depending on how we are approaching this and what we are erasing, because the way you apply your strokes will also determine how things are erased. And you can go in here and adjust your eraser to be something different. You can see here, for instance, if we use this one, it's much more dominant. It's less transparent by default, and you can really just get those clean, nice eraser lines if you wish. So what about undoing and redoing? Take 2 fingers and tap on the screen to undo any previous action. Just keep tapping on the screen with 2 fingers and you can keep stepping back. What about redoing? Well, take 3 fingers and tap it on the screen, and you'll be able then to redo actions as opposed to undoing actions, which again can be a great time saver because, let's face it, we all make mistakes. You can also rapidly undo and redo by holding down 2 fingers, and it'll just rapidly undo a bunch of steps, or you can do the same with redo with 3 fingers. There are other ways to undo mistakes or erase items. If we tap on the Layers button on the top right, we can see this in action. So let's just bring some stuff back on screen with our undo, that way we can see it. Go to our layers, then tap on the thumbnail for layer 1, And the fifth option down is clear. If you tap on clear, it will dump everything from that layer, and you can start over fresh. This is great because you don't have to delete the layer in order to use it. Now, if we undo, we can bring everything back, once again demonstrating we have multiple ways of undoing and redoing. But what happens if you want a shortcut? Well, take 3 fingers and wiggle them on the screen, and that will clear the layer using a shortcut. Let's take one more look at the color swatch or picker. If you tap on that color on the top right, your default classic view will be up, and you can see that within this big color window, we can adjust the brightness and contrast of the current color we currently have on. And there are dials on the bottom which allows us to adjust the main color as well as the saturation and light and darkness within these dials as well. So you have 2 options as to how you can control your colors visually or through the dials. Another popular way to control colors is through the disk option. If you tap on that on the bottom, you can choose your color through the wheel, and then in the center, you have your saturation and brightness. So you can go in and adjust accordingly and all of that. And there are other options within the colors that we can play around with, including creating custom colors and palettes. But for right now, we're just going to leave this at the basics, so that way you understand where that is, and we can build upon it if needed as we start to draw. Another tip is being able to swap between colors quickly. So let's go from purple to green, and we can get out of the color wheel. Now, if we hold down on our color swatch, you'll see it turns to purple. Hold down on it again after we draw something out here, and we can turn it back to green, just like that. So you don't have to fumble around through the color wheel if you're working between 2 colors. Before we wrap up, here are a couple more tips regarding layers, since this is actually pretty common usage. First, let's tap on the Layers button to go back inside there. And then if you tap on the thumbnail for Layer 1, we'll gain access to that menu again, which allows you to clear. But at the top, we can choose to rename, which is really important when wanting to organize. So you can use your virtual keyboard to enter in a name. Also, if we hit the plus button within this panel, it allows us to create new layers. And to quickly delete or lock a layer, simply slide it to the left with your finger, and you gain access to these options, and you can choose to delete from there if you wish. And there we go. That's a little bit about the basic functionality of Procreate. There's obviously a lot more to this application, and you will be learning a lot about it as we continue to build up our cute characters. However, we're hoping that this lesson gives you a basic crash course so you can get up and running with us and not feel too uncomfortable with the app. So we're going to pause here, and up next, we'll jump over and start building up our first cute character. To view the rest of this course or gain access to the source files, visit toonfiles.com.